Kendra snatched the car keys from my hand before I could step off the porch. "Not today," she snapped, already tossing them into her purse. "You're not going anywhere." I blinked. "I have a meeting at 11. It's important." She turned the deadbolt on the front gate with a loud click. "So is my mother's birthday lunch. They'll be here in an hour. Fry the steaks, salad. Dessert. 15 people. You can handle that, right?" I stared at her. She didn't even flinch. She just walked back inside and shut the door behind her like I was some nuisance delivery she'd dealt with. I didn't say anything. I didn't scream. I didn't demand the keys back. I just stood there for a second, staring at the closed gate, hearing the lock settle into place. Then I walked into the kitchen. I opened the fridge. Ribeyes. 3 packs. A mixing bowl of pre-chopped lettuce. Nothing else prepped. Nothing marinated. Not even the damn grill cleaned. I changed out of my blazer, folded it carefully, and placed it over the back of a chair. I rolled up my sleeves. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the fridge and the dull thud of Kendra's heels walking down the hallway. She was on the phone, laughing. I checked the oven. Cold. Countertops, a mess. Dishes still in the sink from last night. So I started. Thawed the steaks under cold water. Set the grill to preheat. Chopped tomatoes, peeled cucumbers. Checked expiration dates on salad dressing. 1 bottle was from 2022. I worked fast, clean, silent. I knew the rhythm. I'd cooked for entire church events, fundraisers, baby showers. But that was when people said thank you. When someone looked me in the eye. When I wasn't locked in. An hour later, the doorbell rang. Voices poured in. Laughter heels clicking shopping bags hitting the floor. Kendra breezed through the kitchen. Once checked the steaks, picked one up with tongs. Nodded without a word. Not even a glance at me. Her family filled the dining room. Cousins, uncles, sisters-in-law. No one I'd ever met. No one who greeted me. I plated the salad, set out bread, heated sides, served plates. No one offered me a seat. I stood near the doorway holding a kitchen towel, listening to them toast Kendra's mother. Watching them talk over each other about cruise packages and home renovations. "Isn't this house lovely?" someone asked. "So much light." Kendra smiled. "We're making it ours." No one asked me to join. Eli came home midway through, covered in drywall dust. He glanced around, then walked up beside me. "You really pulled it off. She was worried you'd mess it up." I didn't answer. He gave me a soft pat on the shoulder like I was a dog who'd fetched well. Then he turned and sat down next to Kendra, who had poured him a glass of wine. I stayed where I was. At the end of the meal, I cleared the plates. Someone handed me a half-eaten slice of cake to throw away. I ate it quietly in the kitchen. Then I washed every single dish. When the last plate dried, I hung the towel back on the oven door and wiped down the counter. Kendra's laugh rang from the hallway as she opened the front door for more guests. That's when I noticed my phone wasn't on the counter where I left it. I checked my purse. Nothing. Her bag was still on the entryway bench. I walked past it, reached in slowly, and there it was. My phone. Right next to my keys. I pulled my phone from Kendra's bag and stuffed it in my apron pocket. Keys, too. Didn't say a word. The grill timer buzzed. I turned the steaks once, twice, then plated them all in rows like I was running a kitchen. Eli walked by, nodded at the meat, and kept going. Didn't offer help. Didn't ask if I'd eaten. I set the dining table myself. 16 place settings. Folded napkins. Ice water refilled. Wine opened. One of Kendra's cousins leaned in and whispered, "You're really good at this," like I was part of catering. Kendra floated through the room in a silk top, lips glossed hair, curled like she'd just left a salon. She reached for a glass of white and raised it toward her mother. "To the woman who taught me everything I know." Laughter, applause, phones out. Her mother beamed. No one looked at me. No one asked who cooked the food. I stood in the kitchen doorway, half hidden by the cabinet, wiping my hands on a dish towel. The smell of grilled fat and garlic butter clung to my sleeves. My blouse stuck to my back. The steaks were perfect. Sizzling hot. Juices locked in. Medium rare, just like Kendra had demanded. I hadn't eaten. Kendra walked into the kitchen just once. She lifted the steak tongs, examined the pan, and gave a satisfied nod. "You can finish up here. We're going to play charades after dessert." Then she turned and left. No thanks. Not even eye contact. I didn't reply. Just picked up the mixing bowl and started washing it. Dishes piled fast. Glasses, cake plates, smudged forks. They joked from the living room, yelling names, laughing at someone who couldn't act out helicopter. I cleaned, rinsed, dried, wiped the counters, scrubbed the sink. Midway through, I sliced a leftover piece of steak, cold, too garlicky, slightly overcooked on one end, and ate it standing by the sink. I didn't bother heating it, didn't use a plate. I just needed something in my stomach. The acid from the coffee I'd skipped that morning was starting to rise. My hands were shaking. Eli came in with an empty bowl and handed it to me without a word. I took it. He was halfway out when he paused. "Hey," he said, "you really saved the day." I looked at him. He smiled sheepish. Kendra's mom was impressed. This meant a lot to her. I kept washing. He leaned on the fridge. "Look, I know it's a lot, but you're good at this stuff. It's like your thing." I dried my hands and looked at him. "You think this is my thing?" He blinked. "I mean, you've always been the one who I stepped past." Him opened the fridge and put the wine bottle away. He took the hint and walked off. The party dragged on another hour. The kids ran through the hallway with sticky fingers. Someone spilled lemonade on the couch. Kendra didn't notice. She was too busy showing her sister fabric swatches for drapes. I retreated to my room, shut the door, locked it, sat on the edge of the bed, and pulled off my shoes. My feet were swollen, knees aching. My blazer still hung on the chair, clean, untouched. I should have been 3 blocks away, signing a lease. Instead, I was scraping frosting off the floor. I lay back, stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I'd clean up again, but tonight, I wasn't going back out there. I stepped into the living room with a tray of fruit, half-empty wine glasses stacked on the side. A few guests clapped lazily, not for me, for the punchline of a story I hadn't been invited to hear. Kendra saw me wave toward the coffee table. "Just leave it there." I set the tray down and turned to head back, but Eli caught my arm. "Sit down for a second. You've been on your feet all day." I hesitated. There were 2 empty chairs. I moved toward one. "Sorry," a woman said, reaching for her purse on the seat. "That's for Uncle Brent." I shifted toward the other. A teenage boy plopped down in it before I got there. No one said anything. I stood there in the middle of the room, holding my hands together like I didn't know what to do with them. Eli gave me an awkward smile. "You like staying busy anyway, right, Mom?" Kendra snorted. "She does." Someone chuckled. A few looked down into their drinks. I nodded, walked back into the kitchen, closed the door behind me. I leaned on the counter, exhaled once, then pulled a container from the fridge and started putting leftovers away. Someone had mashed a slice of cake into the carpet. I'd deal with it later. I used to have a chair at family parties. A plate brought to me before I asked. A slice of pie wrapped in foil for later. Now I was someone people didn't notice unless they needed a refill. I went to the pantry to grab more foil and saw it. A note, in black marker, taped to the second shelf. "Mom's stuff, do not touch." Under it sat a can of green beans, a half-used loaf of white bread, and a box of instant coffee. Not even the good kind, my shelf. I stood there for a long moment, fingers curling around the pantry door. The noise from the living room swelled again. Laughter, someone clapping offbeat. My hands were still sticky from dish soap. I didn't move. Eventually, I closed the pantry, grabbed the broom, and swept the hall while they sang Happy Birthday in a room I was no longer part of. By the time the guests left, I'd already loaded the dishwasher. Kendra reappeared heels in hand, makeup slightly smudged phone pressed to her ear. "Thanks," she muttered. I didn't know if it was for the food, the cleanup, or for not embarrassing her. Eli kissed her cheek and disappeared upstairs. She didn't look at me again. I locked the back door, double-checked the stove, turned off the kitchen light. In the hallway, I passed a pile of gift bags stacked on the bench. There was no card for me. I climbed the stairs slowly. My knees hurt again. In my room, I peeled off the apron, folded it, and slid it into the drawer. I sat on the edge of my bed, same as the night before. Then I opened the closet and reached under the floorboard. I yanked the pantry door open. The tape caught my eye first. Bright, cheap masking tape peeled at the edges. Written in black marker. Bold and smug. Mom's section. I stood still. My stomach turned before I even looked. A bag of stale oyster crackers. A dented can of kidney beans. Expired peanut butter. One jar of instant coffee crusted around the lid. That was it. 3 shelves above me sat imported oils. Organic granola jars labeled with chalk tags. Rosemary cashews, lemon, dill, hummus, pineapple, ginger sauce. Not one item on my shelf had been bought with care. Just cast-offs. Forgotten things. Stuff no one else would eat. I reached for the crackers, checked the date. Expired last spring. I tossed the bag back on the shelf. Eli walked in barefoot, phone in hand. He passed right by me, opened the fridge and pulled out a bottle of sparkling water. "Morning," he said, eyes still on his screen. I waited. I waited for him to see it. He didn't. I stepped aside, arms crossed. He looked up. "Everything okay?" I pointed at the shelf. His eyes followed my hand. Then he gave a half laugh. "Oh, Kendra just wanted to make sure you had your own stuff. She thought it might help organize things." I stared at him. He took a sip from the bottle. "She's been cleaning a lot lately. Trying to keep things, simple." "You think this is simple?" He glanced again at the shelf, then shrugged. "It's just a label, Mom. Don't make it weird." He walked out, just like that. I stood there with that label burning a hole in my chest. Don't make it weird. I emptied the shelf into a bag and tossed the whole thing in the trash. Everything. Then I grabbed a notebook from the drawer by the fridge. I wrote down what I needed: eggs, coffee bread, cheese, lettuce. Nothing fancy. I left the note on the counter. An hour later, it was gone. No groceries appeared. That night, I made toast from freezer bread and drank hot water with a slice of lemon. There wasn't even milk left for coffee. Eli and Kendra had gone out some dinner with her colleagues. She posted a photo. Sushi, wine, candlelight. I sat by the window watching the streetlights flicker on. The house creaked in the quiet. I used to love that sound. Now it felt like a warning. The next morning, I checked the pantry again. My shelf had been refilled, but not with what I wrote down. 2 cans of split pea soup, a plastic tub of margarine, store-brand crackers, cheap black coffee, and 1 note tucked underneath. This should be enough for the week. No name, no warmth. I didn't reply. I took the coffee, opened the jar, and poured it into the trash. Then I went upstairs and opened the red folder again. I pulled up the floorboard with a butter knife. The wood gave with a soft creak. My fingers were already dusty. I knew exactly where I'd left it. Wrapped in plastic, taped shut. I peeled it open and lifted the red folder into my lap. Inside, crisp paper, dry and cold. The title deed to the house, my house. Still in my name. No signatures transferring ownership. No co-signers. Just me. The second document, a durable power of attorney form, drafted 2 years ago, unsigned, meant to give Eli access to financial decisions. I had hesitated. I never mailed it. The third, a notarized letter from my lawyer, dated last spring. It confirmed the trust structure we'd discussed. I'd asked him to pause everything after the baby arrived. Too much going on. Too much hope, maybe. I laid them all out in a row on the bed, red folder open like a wound. They thought I had nothing left, that I'd quietly faded into the background along with the chipped plates and the hand-me-down couch. But they'd never asked what I kept, never thought to. I stared at the deed, my name printed clean across the top. Not Kendra's, not Eli's, mine. I folded the papers back into the plastic, rewrapped them, tucked the bundle under my mattress for now. The floorboard would wait. I wasn't ready to show them what I still held. Downstairs, I heard footsteps. Kendra's voice. She was talking to someone on speakerphone, laughing. The baby started crying. Then silence. I walked to the bathroom, washed my hands, pressed a cool cloth to my face, looked in the mirror. I still looked like me, just quieter. In the hallway, Eli passed me without stopping. "Don't forget, we're having people over this weekend," he said. I didn't answer. He kept walking. I went back to my room and wrote one name in my planner, Mr. Halperin. I hadn't called my lawyer in almost 6 months, but I remembered his voice, steady, measured. I didn't call yet, but I kept the folder close. I shoved the spade into the soil, deep, twisted, pulled. The roots came up easy, the snap of them sharp, clean. I shook the dirt off and dropped them into the bucket. The tomatoes had started dying. No one watered them but me. I turned toward the hose, twisted the nozzle, and sprayed the row in slow passes. The sun was high, my back already damp. I didn't care. The garden was mine. No one came out here unless they needed basil or a quick photo for Kendra's social media. The sliding door creaked. Kendra stepped out onto the patio, phone in hand. She had it on speaker. I turned my head slightly, kept my eyes on the dirt. "But like legally, it's already ours," she was saying, breezy. "She just hasn't done the paperwork yet." "But she will. It's just a matter of time. We're basically the owners now." The voice on the other end laughed. "And she's okay with that. She's old," Kendra said. "She should be grateful we let her stay here." Eli doesn't get it. He still thinks she's sharp. But honestly, she's just background noise now. I stood up slowly, hand wrapped around the hose nozzle. She turned her back to me and kept talking, walking to the far end of the patio. "She folds laundry, scrubs, the bathroom, cooks like it's 1950. She'll hand this house over the moment we ask. I just have to wait it out. I'm not in a rush." I turned the hose off, walked inside, dried my hands, found my notebook, wrote the date and time. Then I added a line underneath. "We're basically the owners now. Kendra, 10:42 a.m., patio." Speakerphone. I closed the notebook. That afternoon, I rearranged the living room while they were out. Just small things, moved the framed wedding photo off the mantel, took down the new "Bless This House" sign she'd hung in the entryway, replaced it with the quilt my mother made folded and hung like it used to be. I didn't say a word about it. Kendra came home later and said nothing. Maybe she didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't want to ask. The next morning, I made a call. Mr. Halperin's assistant answered. His voice hadn't changed. Calm, professional. "Yes," I said. "It's Darlene. I'd like to review my estate file. I have some notes to update." He asked when I'd like to come in. "Soon," I said, "but not yet." Then I opened the pantry and cleared my shelf entirely. Placed one sticky note in the center. "Keep it." I didn't need it anymore. I slammed the pantry door harder than I meant to. The sound echoed down the hall. A second later, Eli appeared, hair messy, shirt, wrinkled, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Everything okay?" he asked. I didn't answer. I pulled a pot from the cabinet and set it on the stove. The metal hit harder than necessary. He winced. Mom, can we talk? I kept moving. Filled the pot with water, turned on the burner. The flame caught with a click. Eli stepped closer. Please. I set the spoon down and finally looked at him. He shifted on his feet, glancing back toward the living room like he wanted to make sure Kendra wasn't listening. All right, I said. Talk. He exhaled slowly. I know things have been tense. Tense, I repeated. He nodded. Kendra's family has expectations. You know how they are. They think we should be in charge of the house. Officially. Officially, I said. He swallowed. They want everything clear on paper. No confusion about the future. And you've always said you didn't mind helping us. I just wanted peace. I can't keep coming between you two. I stared at him. Helping. That was the word he chose. Not housing them. Not cooking. Not cleaning. Not covering the power bill when Eli's hours were cut. Not watching the baby until my knees throbbed. Not losing my meeting because someone locked me in. Helping. I picked up the spoon, stirred the pot, even though it was still cold. What exactly did you tell them? I asked. He hesitated. That the house would eventually be ours. Kendra's parents were impressed. They're all about stability. They've been talking to us about refinancing options, maybe converting the guest room into an office once I'm gone, I asked. He stiffened. No, not gone. Just settled. We thought you'd want to move somewhere smaller eventually, a condo, less work. I kept stirring. You thought? He dragged a hand down his face. Look, I'm under pressure. They want answers. They think you're unpredictable. Last weekend you changed the living room again, and that's my living room, I said. He blinked. Well, yeah, but I turned off the stove, faced him fully. Eli, I said, slow and steady. You're asking for peace. But whose peace is that? He opened his mouth, closed. It looked at the floor. I just want everyone to get along, he muttered. You always helped. You never complained. It made things easier. For who? His jaw tightened. He had no answer. We stood there in the hum of the kitchen silence stretching between us like a wall. Finally, he said, Look, they're coming over again this weekend. Kendra's family. It would really help if things went smoothly, just until we figure out the paperwork. There it was. The quiet truth. The part he hadn't said out loud, he'd already promised them something that wasn't his. I wiped the counter with a dish towel, then hung it neatly back on the hook. All right, I said. His head shot up. Really? I nodded once. You'll get your smooth weekend. Relief washed over his face. Too fast. Too eager. Thanks, Mom. I knew you'd understand. He left the kitchen, humming, already pulling out his phone to text someone. I waited until he was gone, then opened my notebook and wrote one line under today's date. Eli has chosen his side. Then I closed the notebook and walked to my room, knowing the weekend was already waiting for me. I walked into the bank just after it opened. No announcements. No warning. No call to Eli to say where I was going. I wanted the quiet. The hum of the air conditioning. The soft shuffle of papers. A place where no one barked orders at me or wrote my name on a pantry shelf. The teller, a young man with a neat haircut, smiled. How can I help you today? I need to check activity on all accounts under my name, I said. He nodded, typed quickly, then motioned for me to step into one of the side offices. It was small, clean, and smelled faintly of lemon from the wipes they used on the counters. He pulled up the files. Your personal savings and checking look stable. No withdrawals in the last 6 months, just auto payments for utilities and your phone. I nodded. None of that surprised me. Then he clicked a second tab. His eyebrows lifted. You also have a joint household fund here, he said. Created years ago. Still active. Joint fund. I felt the floor steady under my feet. I had forgotten about that account completely. I opened it with Eli after his college graduation and told him to use it for emergencies only. It was meant to be temporary, just a shared cushion while he got on his feet. How much is in it? I asked. He turned the screen slightly. Not much. Can you show me the withdrawals? I said. He clicked another tab. A long list appeared. Home improvement stores, restaurants, ride shares, groceries, a $600 purchase at an appliance outlet, a spa. The dates stretched back almost a year. All withdrawals coming from Eli's card. My jaw tightened. My hands felt still too still, like the anger simmering underneath had nowhere to go. Do you recognize these transactions? He asked. I don't, I said. He hesitated. Would you like to freeze the account? I stared at the screen. One charge stuck out 3 weeks ago. A deposit for a rental cabin for Kendra's birthday weekend. She had bragged about it for days. Eli had smiled at her proud, calling it his treat. I remembered him kissing her forehead. I remembered her giggling. He hadn't paid for that weekend. I had. I folded my hands in my lap and kept my voice steady. Yes, freeze it. The teller clicked through a confirmation window. The account locked with a red bar across the top. Done, he said. Print the statements I added. He printed 30 pages. I took every last one and slid them into a thin envelope. Walking back to my car, I didn't feel shaky. I didn't feel small. I felt awake. The wind was warm. The sky clear. My reflection in the car window looked older than I remembered. Tired, but sharper. When I pulled into the driveway, Kendra's SUV was already in the garage. The door was open. Music played from inside, something loud, upbeat, careless. I stepped out of my car with the envelope in hand. As I closed the car door, I saw her through the kitchen window, leaning against the counter, laughing into her phone. She didn't hear me come in. I placed the envelope on my desk upstairs, sat down, opened my notebook, wrote one line. He used my money without asking. Then I underlined it, once slow and deliberate, and prepared myself for the next step. I called the locksmith right after sunrise. No hesitation, no explanations, just the address and the request. He arrived within the hour, a stocky man in a navy jumpsuit, plain, no frills. He stepped out of his van, glanced at the house, then at me. Which lock are we working on today? He asked. All of them, I said. He raised an eyebrow but didn't push. He followed me to the front door, set his tool case down, and got to work. Metal clicked, tumblers, shifted screws, lifted out with quick practice turns. While he worked, he talked. Some people do that when their hands are busy. Funny, he said. Your son was here last month. Said he needed copies made for the family. Seemed urgent. I stiffened. Copies? Yeah. 2 new keys. Wanted them fast. He shrugged. Didn't mention you wanted any. I stood to the side, steadying myself with one hand against the wall. He kept going. People usually tell me when they're changing who can get in and out. Saves trouble later. I didn't answer. I watched the old lock come out piece by piece like he was pulling the truth apart with a screwdriver. Eli had ordered new keys, new entries, new control. Without me, the locksmith dropped the new lock into place. You want extra copies for, I said. And I want 1 master key. Don't label it. Don't log it. He gave a slow nod. Understood. While he cut the keys in his van, I walked to the kitchen. The pantry door gaped open, the light inside, harsh and bright. My shelf, still boxed with cheap food, looked even smaller now. 2 days ago, I might have stood there and swallowed the sting. Not today. I opened the drawer by the fridge and pulled out the small camera I'd bought years ago when the neighborhood had a string of break-ins. I never ended up installing it, but I kept it. I set it on the counter, checked the charge. It still worked. I opened the pantry door wider and mounted the camera in the far corner, tucked beside a row of baking pans. Hard to see, impossible to notice unless you were looking for it. It faced the entire pantry, every shelf, every label, every hand that reached in. When I stepped back and looked at it, a strange feeling washed over me. Not guilt, not fear. Something colder, cleaner. For months they had watched me move around this house like I was an object, measured how useful I was, how quiet I stayed, how well I blended into the walls. They counted on my silence, counted on my tired steps and low voice. But a camera didn't care how soft I spoke. The locksmith returned to the doorway. "New keys are done," he said, handing me the small envelope. "This set only works with the lock I just installed. Anyone trying to use the old copies is out of luck." I smiled thin and quick. That's exactly what I wanted. He packed his tools, nodded once, and left. I locked the front door myself, turned the knob, tested the latch. Solid. In the pantry, the little camera blinked once armed. Upstairs, my notebook sat open on the bed, next to the envelope of bank statements. I wrote a single line. If they want control, they can fight a house that's finally locked from my side. Then I closed the notebook and set it aside, knowing it was time to make another call. I drove to Mr. Halperin's office without music, without the windows down, without hesitation. No calls. No text updates. No asking permission. I parked in the shaded corner of the lot and walked in with my red folder tucked under one arm. The receptionist smiled as I stepped through the door. "Mrs. Harrow," I nodded. "Mr. Halperin is ready for you." He met me at his door, glasses low on his nose tie neatly pressed. "Same as always, Darlene," he said warmly, motioning me in. "I've been wondering when you'd come back." I sat, handed him the folder. He opened it carefully, scanned the documents with the ease of a man who'd already read them a dozen times before. He knew my husband, helped us buy the house, drafted our wills. He was there when Eli was still in high school, wide-eyed and polite. Now he was the only one I trusted. He looked up. "Do you want me to say it plainly?" "Yes. You own everything," he said. "The title is clean. No joint claims, no liens. The trust was never activated, and the power of attorney remains unsigned. Your son has no legal authority. And anyone living in your house, including your son and his wife, is there only by your ongoing consent." I exhaled. Not relief confirmation. He continued. "You can revoke that consent at any time, verbally, legally, quietly." He slid a single document across the table, 1 page, short, sharp. "This amendment," he said, "removes any assumption of residency rights. It's not an eviction yet, but it means that should things escalate, you've already set the boundary, and no one can say they didn't see it coming." I didn't hesitate. I picked up the pen. Signed. My name felt heavier than ink. Like steel. He nodded. "It's effective immediately. You don't have to tell them, not yet. But from this moment forward, they live there under your conditions." I nodded once. "Make 2 copies." He leaned back in his chair. "You sure you're ready for the fallout?" "I've lived with worse," I said. He smiled, almost sad. "People think silence means weakness. Sometimes silence means planning." He folded the amendment, neatly slipped 1 copy into my folder, the other into his file. "Anything else you want in place?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "If I'm hospitalized for any reason, no one but my physician and my lawyer can access my medical or financial files. No spouse access, no child access. I'll sign whatever that needs." He blinked once, then nodded. "Understood." He made the note, then looked up at me again. "You don't owe anyone your peace, Darlene. Not even family." I stood. He offered his hand. I took it. "Thank you," I said. He didn't ask why it had taken me this long. He didn't need to. Back in the car, I placed the red folder in the glove box. It no longer felt like protection. It felt like proof. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun had shifted. The light hit the house just right, sharp across the windows, bright on the porch. I stepped out. No one inside knew what I'd done, but the locks were mine. The footage was mine. And now the house legally, fully, undeniably was still mine. I walked through the front door like I belonged again. And this time, I didn't wait for anyone to welcome me. I opened the fridge and wrote down everything we didn't have. Kendra had left a note on the counter. Please prep early, guests arrive at 6. Under it, a bulleted list of dishes, drinks, appetizers, desserts. 15 people, all hers. Not one from my side. No mention of a seat for me. I added to her list without asking. Adjusted quantities, rewrote portions. I swapped out her signature salad with something simpler. She wouldn't notice. She didn't eat greens. She came into the kitchen mid-morning, phone in hand, dressed like she was going to an awards show. Not a wrinkle in sight. Oh, perfect, she said, barely glancing at me. I forgot to text you about the wine. We'll need 2 reds, 1 white. And please don't serve from the bottle. Use the carafes. She opened the drawer and took my serving spoons. My good ones, the ones I hadn't used in months. I just nodded. You've got everything under control, right? She asked. It's important this goes well. My parents are bringing their friends. Real estate folks. Big deals in the works. Still, I nodded. Good, she said, then paused. And just so we're clear, don't mingle too much. I want everything to look polished. I met her eyes. Of course. She walked out humming. By noon, the kitchen was hot. Pans clattered. Dishes filled the sink. The smell of garlic butter and seared meat clung to my clothes. I didn't complain, I didn't sit, but I did make changes. I removed 1 chair from the patio table and set it aside in the garage. I checked the wine glasses, only 14 clean. I didn't wash a 15th. I arranged the table perfectly. A smaller cake than usual. No candles. No fanfare. By 4, the house gleamed. By 5, Eli came home. He glanced at the food, smiled like he thought I enjoyed this. You're amazing, he said. Really? Kendra said you've been a lifesaver. I stirred the risotto. You hungry? I asked. He reached for a spoon. I blocked him. It's for the guests. He laughed and walked away. No offense taken. Kendra returned at 5:30. Dressed again. This time in something tight and expensive. She sprayed perfume into the air like the guests might sniff out poverty. Everything smells great, she said. Did you use my recipe for the dressing? No, I said. She blinked. Oh, well, I'm sure it'll be fine. She didn't push it. At 6 sharp, the doorbell rang. The first guests came in laughing loud, calling Kendra's name like she was royalty. She hugged them all, showed off the backyard, the lights she'd had Eli hang. She never introduced me. I brought out the plates one by one, smiling, quiet, familiar. They didn't ask who I was. Kendra's mother nodded toward me at one point and whispered, "She's so reliable." I smiled. When all the food was on the table, I stepped back into the kitchen, wiped my hands, and poured myself a cup of coffee. I sat on the stool by the window, alone. Through the glass, I watched them eat, laugh, toast. No one noticed I wasn't there. I sipped slowly. The camera in the pantry caught everything, Kendra sneaking extra bites, Eli setting down his glass, her parents bragging about their next purchase. They thought I was done giving. But this time, I'd made the menu. I'd decided what they got and what they didn't. And next, I'd decide what stayed mine. I cleared the dining table before anyone came back inside. Plates stacked. Silverware gathered. Glasses rinsed under warm water. The chatter from the patio rolled through the open door, loud, careless, full of people who thought they owned the night. I wiped the table once more, dried my hands, and went upstairs. In my room, I closed the door, pulled out the red folder, and set it on the bed. Then I opened the drawer of my nightstand and laid out 3 blank envelopes. Thick paper, clean edges, no markings. I wrote the dates on each one, slow and exact. One for Mr. Halperin, one for the county office, one for Eli. I filled them one at a time. In the first for Halperin, I placed a copy of the new amendment and a letter in my handwriting. Proceed without further notice. If anything happens to me, release all documents to the appropriate offices. He would understand exactly what that meant. In the second for the county, I enclosed photocopies of the deed and a formal declaration of sole residency rights. I'd typed it on my old typewriter. Stubborn keys, but they still worked. The ink left faint impressions where I'd pressed too hard. In the third envelope, the one with Eli's name on it, I placed something smaller, something heavier. A single key. The old master key. The one I had replaced. The one that no longer opened a single door in this house. With it, I added a note. You wanted ownership. Here is everything that belongs to you. I didn't sign it. I sealed all 3 envelopes, pressed my fingers along the glue until the seams held tight. Then I set them side by side on my dresser, their white edges catching the soft lamplight. 3 small objects, quiet and unassuming. Nothing special, nothing dramatic, but they could move walls, end leases, close doors, undo whole arrangements that others assumed were permanent. I placed Halperin's envelope into my purse, the county's into the bottom of the red folder, Eli's into the drawer beneath my socks. I closed that drawer slowly. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and let the quiet settle around me. Not like surrender, not like loneliness. Something steadier, a weight that felt earned. Outside my door, footsteps shuffled. Someone laughed. Kendra's voice floated up the stairs, too bright, too sure of itself. I smoothed the wrinkles from my shirt, and opened my bedroom door. The hallway was empty, but the night wasn't over, and the next envelope had a place to go. I tied the apron at my waist, double-knotted the back, and tucked my phone inside the front pocket. Camera angled out, audio on. No one noticed. I moved through the kitchen like usual, quiet, quick and visible. The dining room sparkled. Wine glasses shone. Napkins folded just so. Kendra wanted it to feel like a magazine shoot. Her mother complimented the lighting. Her father asked who catered. She laughed. Oh, that, she said, motioning toward me. Our in-house maid. She comes with a uterus and guilt. Laughter exploded. I froze, still smiling. I stirred the gravy, counted to 10, then placed the ladle on the platter like nothing had happened. They didn't think I heard. Or maybe they didn't care. Eli chuckled under his breath, didn't say a word. I served the roast, refilled drinks, wiped the same spot on the counter twice just to stay close. The phone kept rolling. They kept talking. One guest leaned toward Kendra. You're lucky she still cooks. My mother-in-law burned toast out of spite. Kendra shrugged. She needs purpose. I give her one. A woman asked if I was family. Kendra smirked. She lives here, like a pet, but older. The table laughed again. I cleared a plate, walked it back to the sink, washed, rinsed, dried. They toasted to Deal's renovations, the future. No one toasted to the past that paid for it all. Kendra tapped her glass for quiet. To new beginnings, she said. Soon we'll finish the remodel. New floors, new kitchen, finally something that feels like mine. Eli nodded proud. I stepped into the hallway, leaned against the wall, and exhaled slowly. Then I slipped into the pantry, checked the small, hidden camera still blinking. I opened my phone, stopped the recording, saved it to the cloud, then emailed the file to myself, Halperin, and one other name I hadn't used in years, Maria, my old co-worker from the community center, now a journalist. No subject line. Just in case I go quiet. I slid the phone back into my apron, returned to the kitchen, and smiled. Kendra looked at me with lazy triumph. Dessert? I nodded. Coming right up. They didn't know the roast was a little overseasoned, that the wine was store brand, that I'd swapped her imported olive oil with mine 2 weeks ago. They didn't taste resentment. They only tasted warmth. That's how cruelty survives. Until someone hit send. I plated the cake, served it with grace, cleared it before anyone finished. Then I wiped down the counters one last time, folded my apron, and stepped back into the hallway. No one called for me. No one thanked me, but this time, that suited me just fine. Kendra clinked her fork against her glass, just loud enough to steal attention. "We've made a decision," she said, standing near the patio doorway, with one hand on her hip. "Next week, we're starting renovations upstairs. My office is moving into Eli's old room, and her room," she gestured toward the hall, "without saying my name, is becoming my new walk-in closet." The table went quiet for half a second. Then Eli chuckled. "Guess we'll have to find somewhere for you, Mom," he said, not meeting my eyes. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked back into the kitchen. The walls suddenly felt smaller, the tile colder. They joked louder after that. Talked paint colors, storage drawers, built-in lighting. I finished cleaning the last pan, dried it, and placed it back on its hook. My hands shook. Once, just once. Then I went upstairs. Slowly. I sat on the edge of the bed that wasn't mine anymore. Looked around the room they thought they could erase. My books were still lined up neatly. My sewing kit still under the chair. My framed photo of Eli as a boy still tucked into the corner of the mirror. I reached beneath the mattress and pulled out the red folder again. Inside, everything sat in order. No dust. No bends. I took out the deed. The official one. Signed, sealed, dated. The name on it hadn't changed. I laid it on the nightstand next to the lamp where it caught the light, just enough to be seen if anyone bothered to notice. Then I changed into fresh clothes, pulled the sheets tight, and sat in the chair by the window. Outside, they were still laughing. I didn't move. I waited until the house grew quiet. Until the kitchen light clicked off. Until Eli's footsteps passed my door without pausing. Until the guest room door closed. I stood. Opened my drawer. Took out the envelope with his name. Held it in my hand. No weight. But everything inside it was heavier than they'd ever understand. I didn't cry. Not for the room. Not for the space. Not even for the son who thought I'd quietly move aside. I placed the envelope beside the deed, and then I locked my door from the inside. I carried the red folder in one hand and the cake in the other. Same kitchen. Same table. Same faces. Kendra's parents. Eli's old friends, a few cousins I hadn't seen in years. They laughed, drank, joked about remodeling and vacations and upgrades. The living room buzzed with noise and confidence. I smiled, nodded, placed the cake down gently in the center of the table. Then I placed the red folder beside it. Flat. Quiet. Final. I stood straight. Smoothed my shirt. Cleared my throat once. The room hushed like someone cut the power. I opened the folder. Slowly. Deliberately. My hands didn't shake. "This is the deed to this house," I said. "It's in my name. It always has been." Eyes flicked toward me, then toward Eli, then back to the folder. No transfers. No gifts. No shared ownership. I've never signed anything away. I pulled out the second item, a printed screenshot of Kendra's words from the pantry recording. Highlighted. Time-stamped. "This is what you call me when I'm not in the room." No one moved. Kendra shifted in her seat. "Darlene, this isn't the time I raised my hand." She stopped. "I also have a copy of every withdrawal from the joint account," I said. "You've taken thousands without permission." Eli opened his mouth. I cut him off. "I met with the estate lawyer. I amended the residency rights. I filed with the county. The paperwork's done." I laid the last envelope on the table. The one with Eli's name. Your key doesn't work anymore. No one spoke. I looked at Kendra's mother. You said this place needed better lighting. You won't need to worry about it. Then at Kendra. You called me a maid. And you were right, except this maid owns the mansion. I took a breath. Eli stared at me like he didn't recognize what he was looking at. I'm not asking you to leave, I said. I'm telling you. I stepped back from the table. Silence thickened the room. Forks stilled. No one reached for dessert. I turned, walked down the hall, and left them all sitting in a house that no longer felt like theirs. I carried the last box out myself. Set it beside the others. Labeled sealed dry. Shoes, bags, makeup, folders. The yoga mat she never used. On top of the largest box, I placed the envelope. Inside, a printed notice signed and dated. 30 days to vacate. No extensions. The sun had barely risen when I stepped back inside, made coffee, sat by the window. They didn't open the front door until nearly 9 a.m. I heard at first a gasp, then a slam. Kendra's voice tore through the quiet. What the hell is this? She stomped through the entryway holding the letter like it burned her fingers. You can't do this. This is harassment. This is petty. I sipped my coffee. Eli came in behind her. Hair, still messy face, pale. Mom, can we talk? I nodded toward the living room. They didn't sit. I didn't stand. I want to know, Kendra said, shaking the letter. What kind of mother throws her own family out like garbage? I looked at her, then at Eli. You packed my things first, I said. You just didn't use boxes. She blinked. I stood up. You called me help. You locked me in. You laughed when I ate standing by the sink. I walked past her, pointed toward the door. That porch is the kindest parting gift you'll get. Eli didn't defend her this time. He didn't say anything at all. I handed him a second letter, the same terms. His name. His deadline. He looked down, read it twice, then back at me. His voice cracked. Where am I supposed to go? I didn't answer. Some questions answer themselves. Kendra tried one last tactic. You're doing this because you're bitter. I stared at her. No, I said. I'm doing this because I finally can. Then I walked to the kitchen. Poured the rest of the coffee into my mug. They didn't follow. They just stood in the hallway, holding letters they thought they'd never see. Eli knocked twice soft, like I might pretend I didn't hear. I opened the door. He stood there holding a mug, not mine, not his, one of Kendra's, the kind that says something shallow in gold script. I made coffee, he said. Like that meant something now. I let him in. He sat on the edge of the couch like a guest. Looked smaller than he ever had. I know I handled things wrong, he started voice thin. I was trying to keep everything together. I didn't blink, didn't shift. Just listened. I thought if I kept her happy, the house would stay calm, he said. She wanted space. She wanted upgrades. She wanted... His hands shook. She wanted you out. And I didn't stop her. I waited. He kept going. She said you'd be fine, that you'd stayed long enough, that it wasn't personal, but you made it personal, I said steady. Every time you looked away. He rubbed his eyes, elbows on knees. I didn't want to fight. I thought you were strong enough to take it. I was, I said, but that doesn't make it right. He looked up. I didn't know she'd speak to you like that. I didn't know about the pantry or the gate. You didn't want to know, I said. Silence. Then softer, smaller like he was 12 again. I thought we were building a life. You were, I said. But not with me in it. He pressed his hand over his face. Mom, please, don't cut me out. You did that, I said sharper now, every time you walked past me. Every time you let her decide who I was in this house. He swallowed hard. I don't have anywhere to go. You had somewhere. You burned it. His voice dropped to a whisper. I deserve this. I didn't deny it. He looked around the room like he was seeing it for the first time. It used to feel like home. It was. I stood, walked to the kitchen, opened the drawer, took out a key, placed it on the table in front of him. You have 3 weeks. Use them. He stared at the key, didn't pick it up, didn't say thank you, didn't cry. Just nodded, then stood, and left without another word. I brewed the coffee slow, measured the grounds, watched the water rise. No rush. No footsteps above me. No questions from the hallway. No barked orders from the stairs. I poured a full cup, sat at the table. No one else there. No one to ask what I was doing. No one to scowl at the smell. No one to leave a trail of dishes they expected me to clean. I took a sip. It wasn't just coffee. It was space. No yelling. No mocking laughter. No locked gates. No whispering over speakerphone in the backyard. Just quiet. I looked out the window. The porch was still empty. The boxes had been moved yesterday. Kendra's parents came to get them. Didn't knock. Didn't look at me. Just loaded and left. Good. The mug felt heavy in my hands, but not burdensome. I took another sip, let it sit on my tongue. I hadn't realized how long I'd gone drinking quietly in corners. On my feet, by the sink, behind doors, swallowing bitterness with burnt instant. But now, this cup was mine. Fully mine. The kitchen clock ticked. The fridge hummed. The house breathed. I didn't fill the silence. I didn't reach for noise. I just drank. One sip, then another. Slow. Measured. Enough. I thought about the mornings I used to rise before dawn to cook their meals, set out their vitamins, fold their laundry, clear their plates before they even said thank you. They thought silence meant weakness, but now I knew silence was a decision, and I was making it. I reached across the table and opened the small notebook I'd kept tucked beneath the spice rack. It wasn't for anyone else, just dates, names, bank details, the name of the locksmith, the name of the lawyer, the name of the account manager who flagged the withdrawal. I flipped to the last page, wrote one word complete, then I closed it, set it aside, refilled my mug, and leaned back in my chair, steady, still. The morning light crept in across the table. The house didn't argue. It just held me. I walked into Halperin's office with a stride I didn't recognize as mine. No hesitation, no apology, no shrinking, just forward. Halperin stood when he saw me. Darlene Jean, right on time. Yes, I said, taking the chair opposite his desk. Let's finish it. He nodded, pulled out the documents, and spread them across the polished wood. The trust papers, my name at the top, my signature line at the bottom. The house's full legal description printed in neat, unforgiving text. I uncapped the pen. No shaking this time. Halperin talked through the clauses while I read them one by one. The property transfers into the Darlene Keene Living Trust. You remain the sole trustee. No one else has financial or occupancy rights. I kept scanning. No joint access. No implied rights for relatives. Good, I murmured. He pointed to the next page. This section locks out unauthorized residency, even family. If anyone attempts to contest, well, they won't get far. I nodded. Add the clause. The one we talked about. Yes, I said. Exactly. He typed it in the keys, clacking sharp and final. No future occupancy without written consent from the trustee. My consent. No one else's. He slid the page toward me. I read it twice just to feel the power of the sentence settle inside my chest. It did. Slow, heavy, solid. I signed. Ink met paper, and something in my spine straightened. This house, my house, no longer floated between their assumptions and my silence. It was anchored, secured, protected against every scheme, every whispered plan, Every she won't mind. Halperin gathered the papers carefully, as though assembling a fragile monument. I'll record these today. Once the county stamps them, the trust becomes fully enforceable. I nodded again, steady. Send me copies. Hard and digital. You'll have them within the hour. I reached for the second envelope in my purse, the one I'd sealed weeks ago, waiting for the exact moment when the ground under me felt firm. I slid it across his desk. And this goes in the trust file. He looked at it but didn't open it. Professional courtesy. Instructions. If anything happens to me, I said quietly, the house goes to no one. It goes to charity. No arguments. He gave a long, slow nod. Understood. I sat back. The chair no longer felt like a place I was borrowing. I could breathe. He pushed the final confirmation form toward me. This is just acknowledgement, he said. A signature stating you're acting freely, under no pressure. I almost laughed. Freely. No pressure. After years of living under someone else's thumb, the irony bit deep. But I signed anyway. When we finished, Halperin walked me to the door. Darlene, you did the right thing. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I stepped into the hallway, the cool air brushing my face. My purse felt lighter. The weight I'd been carrying wasn't in the bag, it had been in me. And it had finally shifted. Outside the street buzzed with its usual late morning noise. Cars, footsteps, wind. I didn't rush home. I just walked slow and sure, feeling every step on solid ground. Because for the first time in a long time, the house waiting for me was truly mine, and I was walking back to it on my own terms, ready for the next moment, waiting on the other side of the door. I unlocked the back door. Step outside. Breathe in. The deck boards are warm beneath my feet. The sun's low soft. A breeze flicks at the edge of the tablecloth I washed yesterday. I sit. Steady. Upright. Coffee steams from a new white mug. It cost $5. It says, still hers. I sip. No voices behind me. No orders. No keys snatched. No bags of frozen meat dumped on the counter. Just birds. The faint creak of the old swing I oiled last week. On the table beside me, the red folder. Closed. Sealed again. It holds every page title. Trust recorded. Notices, letters, all signed, all mine. No one else's name anywhere now. Not Eli, not Kendra, no loopholes, no copies, just mine. They left angry. Kendra called me vile. Eli looked gutted, but they walked. Took their things. Slammed no doors. I didn't yell, I didn't flinch, I just held the line. After they left, I vacuumed the corners. Moved the chair back into the sunroom, restocked the pantry, no more Mom's shelf. I put my coffee on the top row, labeled it mine. Then I opened the window and sat still while the air cleared. I haven't said much since. Haven't needed to. Mr. Halperin emailed this morning. Everything's final. The new trust is active. No one lives here without written consent, and I don't write quickly anymore. I drink slowly. I read slowly. I wake up when I feel like it. I cook for one. No meat piles. No salads for 15. No screaming over a missed dressing. The fridge hums in peace. The floors stay clean. My name rings clear in every file, every login, every page that once erased me. I sip again. The mug fits my hand. Warm. Simple. Enough. A shadow shifts as the sun lowers behind the trees. I don't move. There's nothing left to run from. Nothing left to chase. They locked the gate thinking I'd stay trapped forever. Now the lock is gone, and so are they. I look around the yard. Grass trimmed, roses cut back. No one trampled them this week. No one shouted from the porch for me to come faster. No one tried to take. They said I was old. Soft. convenient. They forgot one thing. I was also quiet, patient, still. I touch the folder, then draw my hand back. Don't need to open it. Don't need to explain. That chapter closed the moment the porch filled with boxes, and no one stopped me. I lean back. Birds flick through branches. The air shifts. The world keeps moving. I don't. I sit. I sip. And I stay.